The Project Tribute Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our nation's first responders. Our vision and mission is to enhance the life-saving capabilities of our first responders through raising awareness and funding for the life-saving work that they do. Our goal with the podcast is to be an educational avenue and a method for our heroes to express themselves. In the podcast, we will discuss various tough subjects. Some of the subjects may be uncomfortable or controversial. Our guests have the right to share their thoughts and ideas, and for our listeners to hear the unedited words of our guests. The Foundation's role is to showcase a diverse array of thoughts and opinions within the first responder community. If you hear something that you do not agree with, please consider reaching out to us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com and join our podcast. If you're a first responder and you would like to share your story, we truly would love to hear from you and learn from your experiences. Please enjoy this week's show, and as always, like, comment, and share to help us grow. You can find more information at www.projecttribute.com. Thanks and have a great one. So, welcome guys. We are doing our New Year's kind of wrap up of the Project Tribute Foundation. You've got myself, John Beckloff, and then we've got Jared Gorman. And since kind of our last podcast, we made a change in the board where Jared is now on the advisory board. One of the things that we did is we separated out folks that were in the business but had time commitments, and it's definitely a challenge. I mean, right now, if you're seeing us on video, Jared is at the EMS station, so he may have to go and take a call. You may see people in the background. So he's working us into his schedule. So what we did to ensure that we always had experts telling us, yep, that's a good tourniquet, or Jared taught me just something recently about quick clot, and I'll have you dive into that at some point during this.
Sure.
But we want to make sure that we're staying true and staying relevant with the most up-to-date tools and training and all that. So we created the advisory board. So we have folks that are running the business and running the foundation. Then we have folks that are telling us, yep, that's the right direction, or, hey, we've got a better tool, trick, or whatever. But one of the themes, even in my introduction to Jared, was just this fate, the fate of how all things have kind of happened. And we're done with Christmas and moving into the new year. And one of the themes that kept coming up is miracles. And as people keep asking me, John, why did you do the foundation? I wish I had just a really clear answer, and it just kind of happened and kind of felt like the right path to go. And same thing, whenever I met Jared, I said, Jared, I don't know your place in this whole ordeal, but I know that you have one. And he and I both still don't know if we've figured out our places ourselves, but it just seems like everything with the foundation has happened as it was meant to be. And so as you and I were talking, you had a story of somebody that you've introduced me to that I'd like to see if you're willing to share that story and tell us about miracles that you've seen as a first responder.
Sure. I'm assuming you're talking about our friend Judy.
I think so.
Yeah, we are. She's actually donated quite a bit to the foundation too. So without giving too much information away that she'd probably yell at me for. So Judy is a lady that I met, I think 6 months ago now. So we ran a call. We got called to her house for just somebody that had fallen down and needed help getting up. Right. So we get there, and fire department was already there, and she, was on the floor in the bathroom and just couldn't get up. She was just extremely weak. And so when we first walked in, she's bald, completely bald. Mm-hmm. And so I could tell right off the bat that she probably had cancer. Just kind of based on what I was seeing. And she was, extremely weak. Come to find out, she had just finished her second chemo treatment. And so we stayed there and helped her, get kind of cleaned up and got her back to bed and everything. And so we stayed there for a little bit, just kind of talking to her. And her husband, so she was diagnosed with cancer in March of this year. Her husband was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer in January. And he had already had previous bouts of cancer a couple of years before that, but he was in a nursing home, terminal. It was just a matter of time at that point. And so just hearing her story and talking to her, she didn't really have a whole lot of people. And she's got a mother that I think she's 92.
Wow.
Lives here in town, but she's got a daughter that lives, in Texas and stuff. So she just doesn't have a lot of, she's used to having her husband there to help her out with everything. And So that kind of touched us. And for some reason, the next morning, I just couldn't, I had to go. I went home, but as soon as I got back, I had some inclination to just drive over there to her house and see, if there's anything I could do to help. And so fast forward to now, I mean, we've become great friends, and I've helped her out with a lot of stuff, and she's helped me with a lot of stuff too, but she's now cancer free.
It's outstanding. Yeah, it's
Sorry.
No, you're good, brother. That's why I get it. I mean, when you brought her and I over for the flight paramedics to see the helicopter land and take off and teach your students, just in that short term that I met her, it's incredible the passion and I mean, same thing. She's still healing, and so no, I get it, man. I get it.
But yeah, she's a super cool lady. We become really good friends. We talk every day, so it's you never really think that we're put in somebody's life for a reason, but
yeah,
I'd call that a miracle.
So. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the same. The off chance that I met Laura, and then Laura introduced you and I, and now you and I are, weekly having phone calls because you hate text messages.
I do.
So I get it, and I think that it's the same thing of Judy being put in your path, and you were put in my path, and the foundation happening. Yeah, it's been fascinating to see. And you all have every one of you all have talked about miracles that you've seen. Sierra called me after we finished the last podcast going, man, I should have told you about this time that, we made it as somebody was attempting suicide, and we made it before they passed and saved their life. And it's, I guess to a degree, it's a normal in you all's world. And so then it becomes what I see as a miracle. You're like, that was a Monday.
Yeah.
So no, I get it, man. And she's clearly been a powerful impact to you. But I would say that she probably says the exact same thing the other way around, and she doesn't understand she's helped you just as much or more than you've helped her.
Right.
So that's
been awesome. I mean, it's one of those deals that, and if I hadn't stayed and talked to her, I wouldn't have been able to find out, about her husband. And I mean, and I hate to say this too, but some people we run into that get in the situations that they're in is a lifestyle deal. There's, I can't even explain some of the houses I've been into, but and it's not that I don't feel bad for that person, but she takes very good care of herself. I mean, the house was immaculate. It was just one of those things that she was just kind of down on her luck, and it was like just hit after hit after hit. And so, had I have not stayed and talked to her, I would have never known,
right,
about her husband and then her. And I mean, she was struggling quite a bit, just when she was alone going through cancer treatments and, being weak. And she's a very independent woman. So that was hard for her to accept help. I mean, it's taken a lot and she'll say the same thing about me, but it's hard to take that help when it's offered to you, even though you need it. But
yeah, I would venture that when she sees this, she's going to call you and say, "I didn't need help." Oh, yeah. so that'll be the phrase that gets you in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I'm already in trouble probably, but
yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think that I mean, it's the same thing that connection helped the foundation. I mean, I'm delivering, and you're going to go with me. Hopefully on the 4th to Cleveland, Oklahoma, and the donation that Judy provided is what we paid for the bleed kits. And so we're hitting Cleveland Fire, Cleveland Police, the game warden, and I think they're going to have a couple of the highway patrol officers out there. Additionally, they picked that day just by fate that they're training. And so then there's going to be other people there at that training that will, if they're there, I'm handing out the bleed kits as well. So through your hearing that inner voice going, hey, I need to go back, and you going back, not only did you guys help each other, but then that just continues to radiate out in helping others as well, just because you said, man, I want to pause and learn about this person. Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty big.
Shame.
Yeah. I think that it is. And that's the same thing that happened with the foundation that in December, I just said, I mean, so I looked on Facebook a year ago today. We kind of did a big announcement on Facebook that we exist and have applied for the 501c3. So we're really at a year. And so looking back at that year, we've done so much that I've forgotten about. And it's the exact same thing. It's that that little Jiminy Cricket was like, man, you need to do something, or you need to talk with that person. Um, so yeah, it's pretty fascinating how that all plays out and how
Yeah.
that turns. Yeah, I think that the one that really made me understand, we were doing a walk with Running for Heroes, and we had a Washington County deputy that passed in the line of duty. And that same morning of our run, and I've never done that. I've talked with the the Running for Heroes team several times over Facebook, just trying to learn from them, and I really liked what they stood for. And so then that same morning, we received our approval for 501c3, and then we go and do basically our first event to really say we're here. But it was also just this cool partnership to get. I mean, it wasn't about the foundation; it was about honoring Kyle. And I remember being so terrified. I mean, I still, all the people that were there, I struggled to, what do I say? How do we do this right? How do we, and I look back on that day going, man, there was so many different things that came together that I don't know why they came together. I can't explain how they came together. But I know that I hope for the friends and family, we were able to honor Kyle and do right by him. But I can't tell you how it all came together. It just did. And that's how this foundation's kind of worked as well. So it's interesting. Well, so you and Justin and even John Castle and everybody have shared miracles and things that you've seen that you just can't explain. And so I definitely want to dive in more and try to pull that out of you guys. One thing while we're here, I thought worth sharing to you is, so I interviewed 3 female officers, and I talked with a Tulsa fire. I think she's a firefighter, but I'm not sure on that. And kind of put the same question to her as we were on the phone, just saying, okay, out of curiosity, somebody asks you your worst day, what's your opinion? And all of the female officers in fire said, I'll answer any question possible. And then I said, okay, so when you come home to decompress after that day, what do you do? And every one of them said, I talk about it. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that why do you think that they gave that answer when, I mean, now I've talked with John Castle, who he's done, whatever you want to call it that he's done, lots of things, but police included. Talked with, you, paramedic, firefighter, talked with Justin, firefighter, and unanimously it was, no, I don't want to talk about it. Why do you think that's different?
Well, I mean, I hate to go straight to the male versus female,
Sure.
aspect of it, but as men, we're taught to be, be the man of the house, and kind of how I was raised. And it's not to say anything, against my parents or whatever the generation, but when you show emotion like that and share those feelings, it's almost a sign of weakness.
Sure.
And women are raised completely different. Women are very, very emotional beings. When clearly I am as well, but that's not how we were raised. And then you go to the fire service, police, whatever, that's even amplified with males, because just kind of the culture of it, you show, it's like an injured dog, you show weakness, you show emotion, you show something that it's going wrong, and it's a sign of, like I said, weakness. But we're now finding out that, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of you being a human being and being able to share those feelings. And in our field, you have to do that, or it's going to come back to bite you. So
yeah, well, and I asked him point blank. I forgot how I worded it, but I just asked him, "Is it because guys versus girls?" And they were like, "No, no, 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 no." And so I don't know. And I mean, even was it because it's police versus? So they weren't going to jump to those conclusions either. But it was a stark difference where I almost think that that's a whole podcast where we do, 6 people on a panel, 3 and 3, and say, all right, let's talk. What are the differences? What do you see versus? So it was interesting. I was going to poke you on that one.
No, that's my first. I'm sure there's other things that might go into it, but I mean, it's a small sample size, but
yep,
it's funny how it was, across the board the same.
Yep, incredibly different. And what was interesting to me, like you had Maggie that's 16 years in the business, and Jessica I think 6, and then Sierra 4. So from kind of newer to, but not new. So kind of veteran. And all of them unanimously were, no, we talk about it. So
well, and we do too. I'd say it's kind of depends on who you're working with, but I've got a few of the guys here that we talk to
Yeah, but
anything
the question was, John Q. Public asks you. So I mean, that's one thing to talk about, in in the break room or whatever. It was a civilian ask you what's the worst thing you've seen, and all the guys instantly were, I don't want to answer that. Shut up. All the girls were like, yeah, we'll answer anything.
Well, and I'll even go a little deeper into it. So, the females, they, and I hate to say the females, the males, whatever, but just from my point of view, just based on what you've told me, they talk about it a lot. And so they have worked through those emotions, right? So they've talked about it. They've gone through that process of, either anger or grief or whatever. And males typically don't share all those feelings. And so by somebody asking us that question, we haven't completely processed what's happened. So we know if we answer that question, it's gonna hit a nerve, and which makes it hard to talk about. And so that might be why, on the male aspect of it, we don't want to talk about it, is because we really haven't truly dealt with it and processed that information yet. So, I mean, that could be another.
Well, and I think the other side of it is that if you look at the women that I was talking with, one had, and she touched it, severe trauma in her life. The other one had severe trauma in her, not, age 19. And so overall, women getting into the first responder realm, they're already different than your average woman. I mean, they've already kind of accepted, I'm different, and I want to be something different. I want to break the social standards, for lack of a better term. And so, I mean, as Sierra's doing the interview, she's got a dip in her mouth. I mean, she's who she is. Yeah. So it may be that that's also a different caliber of person on that side of the fence. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, it's no different than back in the day. If you wanted to be a man working in the kitchen realm, that was, what are you doing? So I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
It is. Yeah, it is interesting though. I mean, that's kind of a funny coincidence.
Yeah. So one of the things in trying to wrap up 2021, I started looking at statistics, and it was fascinating to me how hard it was. I mean, I spent the last 2 hours just typing, just because every year I tomorrow I'm going to retype the names of all the names on my Jeep. And so when I start looking at the number of line of duty deaths, because that's what I'll start doing tomorrow, it was really hard to find, harder than it has been in past years. And then I dived into the military and found two different websites. One's called bluehelp.org. And that one actually shows that not only line of duty deaths, but it shows that one's focused towards self-inflicted. And so the military, they called their non-hostile self-inflicted deaths. So it makes sense. It's the military. So they had 31 documented, keyword there, self-inflicted, or I'm assuming suicides. And then the first responders, according to bluehelp.org, is 165. Again, those are, somebody reached out to that website and said, hey, somebody I know. And so it's self-reported. So I thought that was interesting. They broke it down into women versus men and the difference. So it was 130 police, 13 fire, 2 EMS, and 20 corrections. I thought that was interesting, that 20 corrections versus 13 fire. And again, self-reported. But that number kind of caught me off guard. But again, it's the majority of those. It's age-wise, most of them are 41 to 50. And then I think I thought there was a tab to do. Oh yeah, it does. Male to female. Well, it looks like you can do it, but it's going to take too much time too. But again, I mean, my assumption is it's going to be more males than females. And so as I'm typing up the names and kind of trying to pay tribute to the past, that those numbers stuck out to me. That if you're looking at, we had 20 military hostile deaths across the world in 2021. Just suicides, we had 130 police. I mean, we lost the same amount of corrections officers self-reported that we did military to hostile conflict in 2021.
That seems
right,
way off.
Right. And again, self-reported. So somebody had to do what I did and find this website that I didn't know existed.
I've never heard of that either.
Right. And then they go and say, hey, I'd like you to add my husband, brother, sister onto this website. So it's a self-reported statistic. But I mean, then you look at true documented line of duty deaths, 482 police, 21 canines, 136 fire and EMS, and 20 military. So we lost more police to suicide, self-reported, than we did fire and EMS combined in line of duty.
And
so I
I
think
will
that
say too, it takes a lot in order for them to determine,
yeah,
line of duty versus, just random,
yeah. So I think that when you and I kind of talked about the foundation and where you've wanted to really go, this podcast, for example, to be able to have that avenue to talk, the numbers show. I mean, we're at, that we know of 300 self-inflicted deaths. I mean, put that whatever category you want. And then it's over half of the line of duty deaths. So that, I mean, it's fair to say that a likely number one killer of first responders right now is self-inflicted and COVID. But that was a shocking thing to me to see. I mean, I saw it 30 minutes ago, so it's fresh on my mind too.
Yeah, sure.
But
I mean, there's got to be a better way of. But it's hard, right? I mean,
mm-hmm.
A lot of times family doesn't want to talk about it, and it's hard to determine, especially if it's a first responder, because like I've talked about in the previous podcast, we're good at putting on faces, so it's a shock to everybody, and so it's hard to prove that it came from something that they've seen, or just the overall, if they've been in it for 15, 20 years, they've seen a lot of stuff, and it's just been an accumulation of stuff. But I could easily bet you money that if we were to dive deeper into that and actually do some research on some of these deaths, that
mm-hmm.
number would
easily
double, triple,
yep,
quadruple, whatever it.
I mean, especially like if you look at the South's very polite. We don't talk about that. So the news isn't going to report a self-inflicted firefighter. They're just going to say passed away at their home. Yep. Okay, makes sense. Especially in COVID world, I wonder how many are going to get buried that they had COVID when they did something else. And so for the family's sake, we're going to not call it what it was. Right. And some families, they want that. Some families want to talk about it. So that was a shocking statistic to see. As I, waiting for the podcast and all that stuff, I'm gathering the names, and that way I can retype the names on the Jeep. And so you come across that, and it's just like, oh man.
Yeah. And that's kind of the same stuff that we found out when we were starting this peer support team, and in Lawrence, when I was on the department, we started looking at some of these numbers, and it's like, how have we not known about that? And we didn't even know about,
right.
It's just something we never even really thought about, because it hadn't happened to us at that point yet. I mean, then that happened twice to us pretty quick, but it's nobody knows about it, which is why this podcast is awesome, because we can now get that information out there. Hopefully, more people see it, but
sure. Yeah. Well, and I think that, it really is. I think talking about it does more power than what people recognize. You and I have talked about that just at the end of a podcast, and you've shared, kind of like you wanted to get that off your chest about what Judy meant to you, and she's going to see this and she's going to scold you for it. But at the end of the day, you're going to go, man, I finally publicly said, Judy, you're important to me. And same thing. Judy, you're important to me, John. I could not thank you enough for even what you've done in just a single month of us meeting each other. So yeah, no, I get it.
Since we're mad at you now, so you're in the same boat as I am.
That's okay. I'm just going to blame you.
That's all right.
So one of the things that I wanted to share, so I listed the successes that we've had, and I learned something 2 days ago. I went to a group that asked me to go talk, and unfortunately, one of the other things I've learned is I got to get better about scheduling, because I stood the guy up today. So I apologize if you're listening. But success-wise, we've outfitted Bartlesville Police Department with every one of them with tourniquets, and we've kept refitting new ones. A few of the Bartlesville Fire, like a dozen at most. Pawnee County, Dewey Police, Ramona Police, Owens Fire, Langley Police, Langley Fire. We've all given tourniquets or bleed kits to in our short time. And donation wise, we've earned $14,600. We've put $21,900 of supplies back in the field. which equates to roughly 50 bleed kits and 200 tourniquets and 200 holsters. But I found out that means at this point we can confirm that 2 lives have been saved through the tourniquets that we've deployed.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's that also means there's 2 tourniquets I need to get replaced to Washington County, sheriffs, but both were automobile accidents. The officers didn't, they pulled that out, put it on, and were able to buy time for services to get to them. So again, from a idea that we had back in December 1 year ago today, 2 lives have now been saved. I'm good with that. I mean, that's
worth it. I mean, that's
worth it. Done. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. But I also wonder, by touching, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 departments now that we have directly made contact with and said, "Hey, I'm here for you." You got to wonder, oh, and there's Copan. I forgot about them. I mean, I need to start collecting patches from who we helped. That way I can have a wall of this is who we helped this year, because it's hard to remember.
Right.
But again, I wonder if we go to them and say, I wonder if one of them was having a bad day the day we showed up, and us saying, "Hey, I'm here for you," made a difference. I don't know. But so goal wise, we all sat in your living room and established. And so if you're listening, a big goal is just to start a signature fundraiser, something that we're working on to figure out a way to really drive the message, but to be one big yearly fundraiser. Obviously, podcast and social media growth is something we're trying to work on. A big goal is getting a workspace or an office space somewhere that we can have, all, instead of it being, one bedroom at my house and, room at Jared's house and, supplies scattered all throughout Bartlesville, making sure that we have a space that becomes the Project Tribute headquarters. That would be a pretty solid goal for 2022. So if anyone has a building that they want to just give us, please.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. We don't need much, about 1,000 square feet. I'll take a shed in the backyard though at this point. And then also increase grant applications. I asked Judy if she would help us with that. That's something that if she has time, and she's got a lot of financial background, so asking for her help and support on that. And then also just helping to increase donor connections. So if you're listening to this and you know somebody that right now our friends and family are the ones that are listening to this, but really trying to get out there and meet people. I can tell you, I fielded a dozen phone calls just yesterday of people asking questions. And so unfortunately that caused me to drop the ball today. So getting better about putting stuff on my calendar. And the other one is rebranding the retail store. You'll notice that I put one of our original logos up in on the frame, trying to just kind of get it change for 2022. Want to always be constantly doing something different. And then my big goal is 100,000 donations and $100,000 worth of donations put right back out in the field. You and I talked about something that I still am learning about, but on-hand counselors. That way we have that peer support network, and maybe not certified counselors, but maybe we start just that peer support group of talking through the tools. And one of the things I talked with the firefighter yesterday was, if you've used a service, let me know. That way I can reach out to them and see if I can get them on the podcast, and we can just vet them out. I've had 5 different websites reach out to us since we did the hashtag PTSD. Hey, we want you to advertise our services. Okay, let's have a meeting.
Yeah. And
I keep getting, hey, we reached out last week. Let's will you help us? Hey, we reached out, but they won't respond to, sure, let's have a call. So it feels fake. It feels, fraudulent. And I can't imagine, if I'm a first responder looking for services, how many of that you walk into. And so as you go out, or if you're listening and you've used services that helped you from anything, really, let us know. That way we can say this is a true, somebody used them and knows that they are legitimate. And then can continue to network and communicate throughout, not just Oklahoma, but the nation. Is some pretty big goals. I don't know what else on the foundation. Have you come across anything I need to do, talk better about or talk more about?
So I'll say too, I mean, on the same line, not necessarily getting somebody, counseling, but if somebody reaches out to us, having those resources available. So even with, if I can't go there, we don't have somebody that can physically go there, they know the next step that they could take to get, that person or that department, the crew that ran a bad call or whatever help. I will say I'm looking it up right now. The international, the IAFF, which is the International Association of Firefighters, they have, and I think they have 2 of these centers now. So it's called the Center of Excellence, and I don't want to say a whole lot about it because I haven't looked, very deeply into it, and I just don't want to say something that's, wrong. But
Sure.
on their website, it's exclusively for IAFF members. It's okay to ask for help. That's the title of that first part of the website, and it's treatment for successful recovery from substance abuse, PTSD, and other concurring behavioral health issues. So a lot of times, if I remember correctly, if you're a union member, your department can send you to there, and everything's paid for. Your housing is paid for. Your treatment is paid for, food, all that kind of stuff. And I know of multiple members from different departments that have been to that and have come back and have been great. And I've had, a couple of them that have even been back a second time for either the same issue or something different. And they've had pretty good success with that. I think it's awesome what they're doing. And I think at this point, as people are seeing now, it's a staffing issue at this point. There's not enough. I mean, if you reach out to a counseling service right now, I can almost guarantee you that they're not going to be able to see you at all within the next 6 months. I mean, they're just backed up, and then you add COVID into this, which just compounds that issue. So I don't necessarily think it's an issue of mental health falling behind on anything. I think it's just it's a staffing issue. There's not enough people to help out with how many people need that help. So this is one of those things too that, and it's specific for firefighters. I hope there's stuff like that for police and EMS, but I know that's specific for fire. But it's another resource that, fire departments can use. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll dive in and see if I can get some connections. And so the IAFF, that is the firefighter union, or one of them, I guess.
The International Association of Firefighters. So if you're a unionized department, I know Barnesville Fire is, Lawrence is. Most likely, a lot of the volunteer departments don't fall under that category. Not saying that they couldn't be helped by that, but I know that it's specific for union firefighters that are organized within that union.
Well, and I think that goes along with what I saw whenever we started the foundation, is that the volunteer fire departments, there's a lot of resources out there, but it costs money for them to get to. Yep. So no, I think that's, I'll dive in further on that. And then, I mean, again, the peer support network seems to be pretty solid. It's simple. It's easy to recreate. So I think that's great. One of the things that I put is in the foundation, if you're trying to start a foundation, I had some learning lessons. I think the hardest part is understanding that, with first responders, you guys are busy, especially this time of year. I mean, we've had 19 deaths just in December, and several of them have just been this week. And so the call volume moving towards holidays is incredible. And I mean, every holiday you can just see the line of duty deaths kind of tick up, but it's because that's when people start domestic violence or fires or heart attacks. I mean, all of it. And so I think that one of my lessons learned is really understanding the world of my volunteers before, so I tried to understand it and just kind of hang back and not bother anybody. But really what needs to happen, kind of like you and I have been really good about communicating with each other of, hey, are you free? Are you busy? When do you think, just having much more dialogue versus waiting for you to say, hey, I'm free. It's, hey, are you free? When, all that stuff.
Right.
I think that was a big learning lesson for me of not only your time commitment, but asking, hey, being much more direct. Yeah. I was hanging back trying to be polite versus you didn't need me to be polite. It's you need me to say, hey, this time, this day on this time, are you available?
Well, and it's no offense, to anybody, if we're talking about between me and you, it's no offense to you if I don't get back to you. It's just, a lot of times we're busy and it falls between the cracks, and that's not, the same thing happens with my wife. So I get yelled at for that, but yeah. Sorry, I was gonna be loud for a second.
No, you're good, brother. During our filming, a page came through on the radio, and so we have muted the audio to omit any of the information that came through. Thank you, and we'll resume shortly. Yeah, I think that's it really is. It's just being able to. I needed to be more vocal, and I was trying to be respectful versus, hey guys, can you make it or not? I mean, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Just the other big one is people promising to do stuff, but then at the end of it, well, I didn't promise that. That one was a really big deal, and so the hard part is again running a business versus running a foundation, but you need to run the foundation like a business. So for this following year, if somebody says, "Yep, I'll do that for free for you," great, fill this form out saying it's for free. We ran into several folks that unfortunately that is their mo, that they've gone to several groups and said, "Yep, I'll do that. I'll take care of you," is the phrase. I'll take care of you. Unfortunately, we're in a world where if you're running a foundation, don't accept that. I apologize. If you're here and you're truly here to take care of me, you're not going to have a problem putting this in writing that this is free. So that was a big learning lesson for us. The other one for me is cleaning up the communication streams. I've been just bombarded as we're ending the year. I'm reaching out to people of, hey, I've got all these kits on hand for your department that you've asked for, and the back and forth of, when can we meet to deliver? And then that led to me dropping a meeting today, and I just didn't get it on my calendar. So one of the things, my next business cards, I took off my cell phone number. That way, everything's in writing versus phone calls. So I know that bothers you, but I need it in writing so I can look back.
It's like you're not busy enough as it is, and then you add your cell phone, your two
Right.
cell phones to that. So
Right. So that was, I've done that twice now, where I missed a meeting because it was a verbal meeting versus a written meeting, and so then it just didn't. I need to get better about just that organization, but it's also the stretch of I've got a day job and trying to run this and grow this. So it's bound to happen, but I hate that it does.
that's why you have a board now, right?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I need to delegate too. And the whole thing about frauds. I mean, I think that's been the shocking one to me is how many frauds I've come across where people promising or using the first responder name without actually supporting the first responders. That's been shocking to me. I don't know if you came across that your career or just since we've been doing this.
What do you mean? Like, can you give an example?
Like when Sergeant Johnson passed away. No, when Sergeant Johnson was murdered in Tulsa, there was a company that came out saying, "Hey, buy our shirts," and it came out on Facebook, and 100% of the proceeds go to the family. Almost instantly, the Tulsa Police Foundation, the Tulsa Police Union, and the Tulsa Police Department took a social media campaign of "Don't buy those shirts." They're not giving the family anything. So this company showed up and said, we're gonna make money off of his life, but we're gonna tell you the money's going there, but it's not actually." And so I've seen that unfortunately quite a few times, which then makes it harder for us as a foundation to get in front of people and say, no, we're real. I've seen that unfortunately several times. I mean, I can tell you 3 local organizations that's what they do. And they've been like, "Hey, we'll partner and we'll do events with you." It's like, no, unfortunately, you're not transparent, and I don't like that about you. That you show me your books. Well, we don't do that. Well, then no, we're not. That's not going to work for me. So that's been I don't know. I learned that the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you're always going to find those people out there that are trying to take advantage of an easy situation to make money, but it's really sad that they would take it upon themselves to try to gain, a monetary value from a death, nonetheless
Yeah.
a first responder death. So
Well, and I think I struggle. That's a big struggle with me. Of I want to honor. I almost try to keep them separate. Like the names on the Jeep. I've purposely not talked about it much, except that's how I started. For that reason, I it's a fine line of celebrating somebody's life and saying they need help, and here's why. To like all the deaths lately that we've been posting on our Facebook page, they've gotten a lot of traction, which is good. That I want to honor those heroes, but I feel bad about it if it's growing us. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's a struggle. I don't want to run a
well,
foundation based.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I mean, you're kind of like what I'm trying to do with the podcast is creating awareness,
Yeah,
just to get people to ask the question. If they ask the question and are interested about it, we can explain it. But I don't think we're necessarily, getting taking advantage of that fact. I think you're honoring those people, and by doing that, hopefully somebody asks the question that we can then explain to them, why we do it and why the foundation is there and what we can do to help, them or somebody else. So,
Well, that's what, like, I at the start of this, we toyed with the idea of, do you take the names that I put on the Jeep and make it a shirt? Basically the same idea. And I struggle with that. I struggle with the idea
I
of
would have,
making.
I would have an issue, not necessarily an issue, but you know, it, I don't know. That's a tough one.
Right.
I think it should be, I don't think that it would be wrong to, let's say, do that on our website, but doing it on a shirt and I don't know. I mean, that's just, I don't know.
I agree.
It'd be,
I want to pay honor to them, but not in a way that profits. And we're nonprofit, so we don't profit. But still, like, I don't.
yeah,
I think, to me, and this is why I've always said I honor their sacrifice, and then we just, we. I feel like we just keep it. I don't know, keep it vague and top level of we. The Jeep acknowledges the sacrifice and those who sacrificed. The
individually.
foundation
Yeah.
will, yeah. So that's okay. If you're
I think it's
listening, you've just
individually
witnessed it.
versus a whole, but yeah.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's been a really big one on my heart, on how do you bring it in or do you leave it out? And I think that answers that question right there. So,
That's just my opinion. I don't mean to
yeah, but
speak
if
for
I'm
everybody,
feeling,
but
if I'm feeling that way and then you confirm that same feeling, then I don't know. It makes
yeah.
sense not to.
Well, and individually, their families, their departments, their
Hmm.
friends, they can honor that person individually. And we can do that same thing on a personal level, but doing it on a level that would be, putting somebody's name out there, especially if it's a suicide. That's a sensitive topic, which, I mean,
Yep.
it should and shouldn't be, but putting it out there in that quantity and that aspect, I think would be a little bit, um, I don't want to say like overstepping, but I think it goes beyond honoring them at that point. I think that we can do it on a
Yeah. I
different
mean,
level.
you risk if somebody reached out and said, "Hey, will you make, I don't know, my brother this shirt?" Well, that the sisters asked, but what if the mother, the spouse, the child didn't want that?
Right.
So that,
Well,
so yeah,
yeah. And if that, I mean, that shirt could be around for 20 years. And so if somebody runs across that and is like, hey, that's my grandfather,
yep,
and the family didn't want them to know that they committed suicide, that's a whole different aspect. I think what might be a good idea too, and maybe this could be like an end of the year shirt or something, but those numbers we were talking about, put those numbers on a shirt. I
yeah,
mean, it'd be hard too, because that number's inaccurate, right? It's not that number's, half of what it probably is in all reality, but,
right,
that would be a good way
yeah,
to get.
yeah. I think that it's such a intricate thing, and one of the we've talked about this privately, but I also want to say this publicly, that kind of like you talked about the local fundraisers of the shirts, if they have a local death or any of those, I want to always operate our function in a manner that the local fundraisers, the chili cook-offs and all that stuff are not impacted. So as we look at our yearly event, it is being mindful of, let's do something that no one else is doing at a time frame that no one else is doing. That way we don't take away from, the, like here in Bartlesville, where the firefighters wear the heels and walk. That's a pretty cool fundraiser. I don't want to recreate that, or I mean, we'll take part or be present, but not take away. That way, because at the end of the day, if we're there at Bartlesville doing something for Bartlesville, we're giving Bartlesville money. Well, why would I take their money? You know what I mean? So I think
Right.
that's a big deal to me, is always being mindful of what are the local folks doing and not touching that and not doing anything that could jeopardize that to them.
Sure.
So, well, kind of the big, it's incredible to think that the amount of funds that we've raised, but also the goal is $100,000 for next year. I think that through the donors and grants and continuing to really beat the streets and try to just educate more people that we're here, that we're real. That's the big deal to me, of getting more first responders that we come across. I mean, January 4th, we're going to Cleveland Fire. let's say there's 20 people there. Well, that's 20 people that then can go tell their, cleat classmates or fire academy classmates, hey, I met these people, you need to check it out. So I think that we will continue to exponentially grow, and one day it's just going to take off and blow up, and then we all shift into that's what we do for our day jobs.
Sure.
So,
and the clothing, I mean, definitely helps. I try to wear, especially if I go out of town, I'll wear a shirt, and hopefully that sparks a question, because I mean, a lot of our shirts, I mean, they say Project Tribute, but if they haven't heard of that and it looks like it's a first responder, military, whatever, and them just to ask that first question, I mean, that's one way to get our awareness out there.
Yep. Well, that's what I last night I made pamphlets or flyers basically that we'll start distributing out to try to help raise awareness as well. But I mean, you're right. It's the shirt sales. The really neat thing is, for example, the hoodie we charge $45. It cost me either 22 or 23, but then those bleed kits we're handing out cost the 22 or 23. So literally one hoodie buys one bleed kit. Our operating expense per month, I think, is $100, maybe $129. And that's for the streaming monthly service and other monthly charges that we get, PO Box, Amazon Prime, nothing big. And so it allows that shirt sale. So when you go buy a shirt, you really are buying a tourniquet or buying something else, and that's what we use the money for. That's why forgot what the variance. Let me look real quick. I mean, so we're $7,000 variance of what was donated to what we've put back in the field, and that's because of the shirt sales. We've been able to take the sales and put that right back in the field. And if you're looking at our YouTube, we've got the discount code year one. I'm going to extend that for another week. That it'll do 20% off of any purchase on the store. So projecttribute.com, we've got hats, I got coffee mugs coming in, pajama pants, a zip up hoodie. We got all sorts of stuff coming through, even another version of challenge coins. So we got a lot of stuff coming through and rebranding.
Patches.
Yep. I got some patches that I actually accepted one proof yesterday. So a version of patches are being shipped, and then whatever patches you've got going on. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming through. So we're going to try to clear out the current inventory, and then get new stuff on hand. That way we can kick off 2022 the right way. Man, I think we've kind of talked. So Project Tribute is a 501c3. We are a nonprofit. We've got an accountant that's going to go through the books here in a bit. And that way we can continue maintaining that 501c3 status. If you're listening and you want to know anything about the foundation, let us know. If you want to meet us, let us, we'll set up a podcast, set up a Google Meet, whatever is convenient. COVID's probably going to hit pretty hard over the next month. So we're just going to keep on plugging away and navigating how that hits us. But the whole goal is that we're going to fundraise for anything that will save a life. And that's where the podcast, maybe somebody's listening that you're struggling. Make sure that you reach out to us or reach out to a resource. Biggest thing is if you're New Year's Eve today, if you're listening to this, it'll air at 8. If you notice a coworker is struggling, talk with them, please. If typically they're happy, now they're not, or typically they're not happy, and now they're incredibly happy. If somebody's different, talk with them and check, just check on what's going on. But we need to take care of each other. So what else do you want to, for 2021, man, what else you want to throw out there?
Well, just kind of to add to what you just said, I mean, if you're struggling yourself or know somebody that's struggling, I mean, anything you guys send us, it's not going to be public information. It's going to go from you to me. And it's not something that, like I said, I'm not a counselor, but I've been through this before myself with a lot of stuff, friends, family, coworkers. And if anything, you can ask me, what you should do or how you should act with whatever situation might be coming up. And, I'll help you as much as I can with that. And then if you need resources, I can get you a resource. I'll do my research and get you something in your area. I mean, you guys, it could be, Washington State. It could be, Texas, whatever. I mean, there's resources, available to you, and I'll help you find those. So.
Yeah, and I think that a couple times I've talked with folks, and I've just used the StreamYard device and not recorded. That way, it's a clean, kind of like a Google Meet if somebody doesn't have Google. But I've done that a couple times, basically like conference calls. So if you're listening and you want to, pick my brain or Jared's brain, let us know, and we'll get on there and talk with just about anybody over anything. It's up to you. What's say? I mean, I tell Jared that. I tell anybody we talk with, if there's something said that you don't want shared, we won't. I mean, it's our sole purpose is serving first responders, period. And we will continue to grow our name and our reputation, but the base level is 100% of our work is for you guys. So, man, what else?
I mean, I've said it before, but thanks for what you're doing. And, I know it'll take off, to the level that you want it to, might just take some work before we get there. As you've noticed, it's hard to work your way into the first responder, community. And I think it's awesome what you're doing. I mean, everybody that I've talked to is proud to be a part of it and proud to support it. And at this point, it's just people talking and getting the name out there and what we do. And,
it's definitely terrifying. I still walk into the EMS station, get nervous every time. Y'all are a scary bunch. So, alrighty, man. Well, you guys, I hope that you have a happy new year, and then look forward to what 2022 brings. So appreciate all your time, Jared. Appreciate everything you've done for the foundation. You and Laura are amazing. And I'm excited. I'm excited to continue to grow with you guys.
Me too. Next time it might be from the helicopter, but
that's right. When are you able to say when you start?
So the 10th is my first actual day, but so Sunday, the 2nd, is my last shift here. I'll still be on, like work, what we call PRN or as needed.
Sure.
But I've got some training to do. Hopefully by the end of January, I'm actually on a helicopter working as a flight paramedic. So it just takes a little bit of training before I can get there.
Sure, man. That's exciting. Congratulations again on that.
Yeah, man.
That's real deal stuff right there. I mean, your exposure and ability to help the state becomes even bigger. So that's outstanding.
Yeah. Plus, it's cool just to be in a helicopter.
Yeah, there's a lot of words.
You can get there really fast.
So, all righty, brother. Well, I'm excited to hear about your new transition into the job and seeing all the selfies, if you're allowed to take selfies while up in the air.
I'll sneak a few in.
Yeah. Well, again, let me know if it gets you in trouble and I won't do it. But Judy, if you're listening, we both of us are incredibly appreciative of you and what you've done. And it's Jared's fault.
Yeah, it usually is. It's all right. I'll take the blame.
All righty, brother. All righty. I'm going to end the recording.
All right, man.
This podcast is hosted by the Project Tribute Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our first responders. Thank you for listening. For more information on our efforts, check us out at www.projecttribute.com. If you're a first responder that would like to share your story, contact us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com. You can find us on various social media and podcast sites by searching the Project Tribute Foundation. 100% of donations are used to save lives, while our retail store pays for any of our operational costs. Thank you again, and please be sure to like us, follow us, and share our foundation with your friends. Stay tuned weekly as we continue to share our stories from our nation's heroes. Thank you.